Kevin, the members of the Algonquin Round Table, the vicious circle, as they call it, it's an amazing collection. Just from going through your book, journalists, authors, columnists, 5 Pulitzer Prize winners, actors, the founder of The New Yorker, the person who wrote the screenplay for Citizen Kane, talent agents, Harpo Marx. What an amazing group of people ate in this room in the Algonquin Hotel every single day.
I mean, you're sitting in the spot where one of those people was sitting, which is an amazing thing to think about, that in these 12 square feet of Manhattan real estate, 95 years later, you can come back and sit in the same place that Harpo Marx or Herman Mankiewicz or Harold Ross was into. So it's pretty neat.
What is it about that group of people, beyond just the things that they did, the collection of such noteworthy people in one place every day for a decade?
I think it's today, I mean, imagine going out to lunch with a friend every day, 6 days a week, and you're collaborating with someone to create a hit show or a book or a script or a magazine. So they were very good networkers and collaborators. I think that's what we remember today, is the things they accomplished as a group and as friends.
I was racking my brain after reading the book, trying to think of a present-day equivalent to the Algonquin Round Table. We see or hear about places where people, celebrities meet or they mingle, but they're not all gathered at the same table. In your thoughts on this, is there anything remotely like the Algonquin Round Table in modern day society?
I think really it's on social media. I think if you looked at like what Whtiman does on Twitter, where people are getting together virtually, because who honestly goes out to lunch any longer? I mean, it's very hard to go out to lunch, much less go out with a different person every day to do something like that. So to get a group of that kind of talent together, I don't think it's possible. But you could do it if you're sitting in front of your computer or on your phone or something.
You say in the book, to be a Round Table member, you had to be talented, witty, and charming. What did they talk about sitting in this spot?
They did a lot of topical things, because there were so many newspaper columnists sitting at the table that had to create a column every day. What they would do is what was said at the table that day, and it would be in the next day's paper or that afternoon's newspaper for the afternoon papers. They talked about current events. They talked about shows they were doing. Franklin P. Adams, who was a columnist, he wrote the most about them, and he talked about that they told stories, they told jokes. They did they one-upped each other. They saved up their jokes for the good ones to get Haywood Broun said, repartee is what you wish you had said. So a lot of them, they would think of something and save it and bring it to the table and drop it on everyone like a bomb.
So it seems like it was all about being witty, being funny, sort of one-upping each other the way that you might with your friends, except these were some extraordinary friends. Was there a deep conversation? It wasn't weighty matters, it wasn't affairs of state, it was simple observations?
They were a fairly serious group as well. I mean, both Dorothy Parker and Haywood Broun protested Sacco and Vanzetti's execution. Parker was arrested in Boston. They were very political. Some of them ended up on the FBI watch list, like Parker and Donald Ogden Stewart, whose FBI file is very thick. So they were very, left-leaning. And in the 20s and 30s, a lot of them got very involved in labor organizations, and Parker helped found the Screenwriters Guild. So it wasn't all just fun and games. They did, have a serious bent too.
This is a group that met. It's almost 100 years since they first got together, and yet their legacy lives on in books like yours, or in movies that come up, or just in people who come to the Algonquin simply to be a part of this moment or sit in front of this painting of some of the members of the Round Table. Why has their legacy endured so well so long?
I think it's because they were pioneers. They're ahead of their time. They had their pulse on pop culture at the moment. I mean, think about what they left us. They launched The New Yorker, which started in this hotel, which is celebrating its 90th birthday this month. They created, lasting hits. Edna Ferber dreamed up Showboat there. Citizen Kane came out of Herman Mankiewicz's experience as a newspaperman while he was working here. So a lot of those folks saw what was happening in pop culture the era, and it just continued on into today. I think people remember. And
certainly some of the members, their legacies, their works live on. Some of them, many of them worked as journalists, worked in newspapers, worked in magazines, and as a member of the media, I can, it's here one day, it's gone the next. So their individual work might not be as well received by everybody today. It might not be fresh for a lot of people, but yet the legacy of the combined group seems to be almost as strong, if not stronger, than the individual works.
Well, that's true. And someone like Alexander Woollcott, who, at the time, he was like his Jon Stewart. I mean, he was extremely, extremely popular, but he was so ephemeral because he was writing a daily newspaper column. And that immediately went out of fashion with, like it was yesterday's news. So today he's little remembered for anything except he inspired Sheridan Whiteside in The Man Who Came to Dinner. And some of his quotes, they live on Instagram and on Twitter and Facebook type of things. But what they actually wrote is not was well known today.
You're a Dorothy Parker historian. You probably have forgotten more about her than I'll ever know in my entire life. Is she the member of the Round Table who resonates with you the most? And if not, who is that?
I think it's Dorothy Parker. I mean, she was a fantastic writer. She had bad relationships, bad jobs, bad apartments, was a freelancer, so I identify with those kinds of things. But I think a lot of folks like her because what she was writing about in the 20s is still as relevant today. I mean, Getting Her Heart Broken in 1924 is just as popular in 2015. So she's writing about the human condition, so I think that's why she's still so popular and so well read. Some of the others, though, I mean, George S. Kaufman is on Broadway right now. I mean, so people still do talk about them in different ways and in different mediums.
Who's the biggest surprise for you as you research the members of the Vicious Circle? Who's the one who maybe came out of left field for you and you're like, wow, that's a really interesting story?
I think it's Herman Mankiewicz because he wasn't here when the Round Table started in 1919. He was still in Germany, when the war was ending. He came a couple of years later and he joined the group. He was there when the New Yorker launched, and then he went to Hollywood very early to become a screenwriter. But all of his experiences in New York, he then poured into a script for Citizen Kane. So you can see these little bits of people that are, in that screenplay. So he was a very interesting person to research.
And finally, Kevin, you're here probably more than a lot of people are, except for people who work at the Algonquin Hotel. It's a classic hotel, a legendary New York hotel, a legendary spot. When you walk through here and you get to this spot in the Algonquin, in the Round Table room, what goes through your mind when you see the painting behind you of the members? What emotion comes to you when you're in this spot?
It's the same feeling that you would get walking into Yankee Stadium. I mean, you are walking where the greats walked. You're walking through that door, and James Thurber did the same thing. J.D. Salinger, all these fantastic writers for 110 years have come through those doors, and you're having a drink or meeting friends in the same place they are. So it's not just a great location as a book fan, but just as a New Yorker, and just as someone that really likes history, but likes being part of the modern New York at the same time. I mean, there could be editors and writers from magazines right now in the lobby. You just don't know who they are because they might not be on television. But there are still people coming in for that experience.
As a writer, as a journalist, it's a little intimidating sitting in the shadows of all of these luminaries. It's a little overwhelming.
We should come here and hang out more often.
I think we should. Well, it's a fascinating book, The Algonquin Round Table, New York, a historical guide. Extremely well written, and it's great for somebody who's not as familiar with some of the names and maybe is trying to figure out who some of these people are or why this group has the endurance and the legacy that they do. So terrific job, and thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.